Now this next image might be my favourite image of the World Cup. Head in his hands, we can't even see his face in this image. The goalkeeper's on the floor, the covering defender's on the floor, Bellingham's on the floor. We can just see the 7 Ronaldo at the back. We're 10 days into the World Cup. Let's take a look at my favourite 11 photographs from the tournament so far. Now I'm James, I'm a portrait photographer and international photography judge, so I'm going to have a look at some of the best images from the tournament so far and have a look at what makes them great from a technical standpoint and from a creative standpoint. Now if you go on to Getty's Images, it's a good way to source images that are being taken throughout the World Cup. It feels like every World Cup that happens gets more and more coverage from the previous one. And in this case, Getty's Images is filled with folders from every match, from every training session, from every press conference. Even just the players just arriving at the stadium has their own separate folder. But within that, they also have the best of days, and these best of day folders are like the most downloaded images and also the most editorial popular images as well. And I'm just going to have a look at 11 of my favourite from the tournament so far and celebrate them with my judge's hat on, thinking about them from a judge's perspective, how they might do well in competition and what makes them amazing photographs. Let's take a dive in. Now, the first image here is from Molly Darlington, who I know is a young UK-based photographer. It's from the Capo Verde-Uruguay match, and it's of this challenge taken from this, what some might deem as a challenging angle. Now, we'll know in the previous video that one of the greatest World Cup images ever of Maradona against Belgium was taken from a less than desirable position, a trainee photographer being put up in the stands out the way. But because of the alternate angle, it gave us all an alternate perspective on what was going on. And this one's no different, slightly raised up, there's no line markings in the shot, and it's just really, really interestingly composed. It's got that lovely line going from the bottom left all the way up to the top right. The Capo Verde midfielder Varela being challenged and up in the air there with the 2 Uruguayan players either side. And I love the framing with the boots in the top right-hand corner there, just framing. Everything's individually framed within this green surface, and everything's got space to breathe, but the composition and the placement of the elements within the piece is really, really interesting. Love the expression in the middle as well, and love the use of colour in terms of the red against the green backdrop of the grass. Those red and greens working together on a complementary colour scheme, really drawing our attention where it needs to be, into the middle of that frame, framed by those 2 Uruguayan players. Great to see Molly's work, great to see her having the time of her life, and great to see her celebrating football and doing it her way. It's a really, really, really cool shot. Now the next one here is from Hannah Peters on behalf of FIFA, and it's the first image of the first game. This is the opening ceremony at the Azteca, and I remember when the opening match happened, lots of old school journalists, lots of old UK journalists and broadcasters were celebrating being in the Azteca, the stadium that was so synonymous with the World Cup for them. Memories of 1970 and Pelé lifting the trophy, in 1986 Maradona lifting the trophy, and how many amazing moments have happened in that stadium. This one's got an almost vintage feel, and this is one of those shots that production will often ask you to get. They need a wide angle shot of everything going off, the peak of the opening ceremony with the World Cup on display in the middle, everything going on around it, and then that cacophony of smoke grenades and fireworks going around the top of the stadium. It's been really well captured here on a wide angle lens. Everything caught in frame. We can tell that Hannah's had to get right up to the top of the stadium here, right in the aisles. This is a long way to go, and you have to get there and be right on point with regards to your timing, which has happened here because each one of those fireworks going off from the top is going off in unison at the right time. Also, a little vintage feel has been put over this image in terms of the coloration of it, so there's slightly muted tones there, harking back to those 80s and 70s era for which made the stadium so synonymous. Just that little bit of attention to detail and that little touch has really, really elevated this picture. Love this shot, and it's a perfect way to showcase liftoff for this massive tournament. The next one here is from McNulty, and it's an image that you're going to see quite a lot during this World Cup. A corner being taken. You know that everything is in place for this image. You know how corners work and that you can get your timing right as a photographer, so you can actually prepare. It's really difficult photographing football at times because action happens so quickly, breaks happen so quickly. So to have a break in play like a corner kick and get everyone set, as a photographer you can set yourself. But what really elevates this shot is a few things. The timing on the point of the corner being taken is great in terms of the angles. This is right at the peak of the kick here, just before the legs being swung in. So the angles on the Swiss player in the foreground really draws your eye, especially as he's been put onto that point of thirds. The grandstand behind is elevating the image, especially in this really challenging lighting condition. The stand there in the background, a lot of the fans in the stand in the background are wearing red. Probably because this is a match between Switzerland and Qatar, so both their first home strips are red, so that's probably what a lot of the fans are wearing. And again, that red and that green is offering us a real good use of complementary colour. I love the fact that the floodlights are on at the top of the stadium as well. It's just giving us that spotlight feel and help add to the grandeur of the whole image. It just looks really timeless. It works and it's really contrasty, and I just think it tells a really good story with a simple use of rules of thirds to give us a dramatic composition to the final image. Now, this next image from Patrick Smith might be my favourite image of the World Cup so far. It's of Capo Verde goalkeeper Vozinha, and it's after his team's 0-0 draw with the former world champions and current European champions Spain in their opening match. Capo Verde have been on such a journey just to get to the World Cup. I remember their fans saying what an amazing thing it was just to see their flag being displayed at a World Cup. But this is after Vozinha's performance of keeping Spain out for 90 minutes, keeping a clean sheet, being the hero and the undisputed man of the match. Emotional at the final whistle, and he's being consoled. He's not being consoled at all. He's being celebrated here by one of the coaching staff with this sort of 1,000-yard stare that Patrick has brilliantly captured, looking straight into the camera with tears in his eyes. This is what it means. This is what sport can do, not only to the people that follow and support sport, but more importantly in this instance to the people that are at the centre of the action. And seeing these raw emotions is truly humbling, especially when they're straight down the middle of the lens here. This is not just a sporting photograph, not just a documentary photograph, but it's a portrait photograph of a man who's towards the end of his career had a man-of-the-match performance, whose parents and grandparents couldn't be there to witness it in person. And it's just the culmination of all of those emotions with him looking straight down the middle of the lens. That's why it's one of my favourite images of the World Cup so far, and it's just a beautiful picture. This next one here is from Lars Baron. It's an observational documentary image, again taken from high up in the stand, unconventional for sports photography, when the majority of the prime spots for sports photographers are down by the touchlines. But this one here is of Portuguese talisman Ronaldo, and he's just placed to the left of the frame here with nothing else except this single curved line, head in his hands. We can't even see his face in this image. We can just see the 7 Ronaldo at the back. And this is telling the story of Ronaldo's World Cup to this point, where desperate to score goals and take Portugal as far as he can in the tournament, and at least in the first game, that didn't happen for him. No goals scored, 90 minutes played, and there are question marks over his role within the team, and that's what Lars has perfectly captured here, I think, in this very simplistic image. And sometimes the best portraits and the best photographs and the best sporting photographs are the ones that are simple, the ones where less is more. Good use of colour again in this one, red and green. I've mentioned it a couple of times on this video already, but red and green works so well, particularly within football. And we'll see how Ronaldo's World Cup pans out beyond this opening match. Hope he does well. Hope he does brilliantly. And then we can move straight away to Lionel Messi for our next shot. And this is Juan Mabromata, who has managed to capture Messi's scoring from behind the goal. Now, cameras being placed in goals and behind goals isn't anything particularly new. But what makes this brilliant is the use of shape within the image. Messi placed slightly off to the left there, with his face and his shoulders all perfectly within that one hexagon of the net, and the ball perfectly placed within the other hexagon hexagon of the net. The goalkeeper's glove as well is also in another little hexagon there, with him going completely the other way. So it's just a good celebration of that technique and that form, and just great timing on this shot. And half a second before, that ball isn't going to be in the right place, and it's just a lovely, lovely, well-composed image. I imagine there's a real spray and pray element to some of the shots from these angles, particularly when they're on remote timers. But this is a good celebration of Messi and a good celebration of his journey so far at the World Cup. So we'll take you now to Dallas, Texas, to England's opening game against Croatia, and to Jude Bellingham's first goal early in the second half. And this is just great timing here from Marc Atkins. Bellingham's made the run into the box and he's taken the shot, and everyone is down on the floor. The goal still hasn't been scored yet. The goalkeeper's on the floor, the covering defender's on the floor, Bellingham's on the floor, and the ball is in the foreground. And we are all focused. All three of those guys are all focused on where that ball is going. It ended up just inside that post for a goal. But the focus in this instance has been pulled onto Bellingham's face, and just that look and that expression of expectation and worry and anxiety on the part of all of the players there. It's just been well captured, really, really well composed. It's a great image, and typically when we're looking for images of goals, we're looking for celebrations, for cheering, from excitement, for all of those things, a general overall celebration. But this is just that fraction of a second before the goal. And they talk about marginal games and fine margins within football. Well, this is, an inch or two away from not being a goal, and it ended up being one that Jude then celebrated brilliantly. But I love this moment captured just before. It just gives you a different take on that goal scoring experience. This one here from David Ramos of South Korea versus Mexico is really subtle, but I love it. And when it came up on the screen as I was scanning through the images, I stopped and I went back to it and I looked at it again, and I just thought it was a really, really excellently executed shot. It's at the end of the game. We're in the middle of Mexico. We are probably playing at altitude, high temperatures, and we've just given our all into a game with the host nation in the darker colours there, Mexico against South Korea. And it's just those few moments after the final whistle. South Korea have lost, and each of their players is doing something different. A couple of there are bent over, one with his head in his hands, one just lying on his back, one just looking off into the distance. And they're peppered by this line of darker jerseys of Mexico, all upright there, not celebrating the win just at this point, but just relieved that the final whistle has come. And what David's done really well here as well is he's managed to capture an element of the football pitch where there are no line markings. So there's nothing to break this up. They're just peppered around in a really, really pleasing formation there. And I just think it tells a lovely story. And again, it's a good use of this higher angle, shooting from the stands, getting something different and offering us a slightly different perspective of something that you may not always see. It's a fleeting moment at the end of this final whistle before everyone comes onto the pitch, and it's been really, really well observed. Now, this shot here from Richard Heathcote showcases a referee, and the referee's name is Evan Barton. And if he ever wants to hang up his boots as a FIFA official, he could definitely make it as a professional wrestling official. The way that he delivered the sending off via the microphone to the live audience in this match was incredible. And I just love the composition of this shot with the Turkey player on the right-hand side, referee on the left-hand side, both arms raised, both arguing about a point, framing the Paraguayan player in the back of the shot there. It's just a lovely coming together of things and elements to create this really pleasing shape in the centre of the frame that's got elements of documentary, elements of emotion, elements of confrontation within it as well, and just a really, really pleasing capture. But I also wanted just to bring attention to this referee who thinks genuinely incredible and has made for one of the moments of the World Cup so far. Take it to the USA now, and Alex Grimm. The USA played a match in LA, or was it Seattle? Take you now to the USA versus Australia, a match in Seattle, and this has been taken by Alex Grimm. This is a really high angle in the stadium, and we're right above the players here, so I can only assume they're down by the touchline. Now, shooting sport at high noon can sometimes be like a real challenge, but this image here, and I've noticed this a lot in a lot of the photographs that are coming through from the World Cup. A lot of people are really using shadows to create interesting shapes, and at times people are manipulating those shadows in post-processing to make them look like things that they're not. But I like this natural element and this in-camera element here with the ball just balancing on the head of the lower shadow there is really, really interesting and makes the whole image here. This doesn't work without the ball in the bottom left-hand corner. Both players struggling in the middle of the pitch, and we can't really see either of their faces. And that helps the image because it draws us to those harsh shadows and it draws us to the shape that's being made there on the grass in the background, pin sharp around that entire image. And it really showcases the athleticism and the competitiveness of football as a sport. Last one here is from Luke Hales, and it really showcases this stadium shot of Guadeloupe with the mountains in the distance, this sweeping sort of polygonal shape with curved edges and the lovely little structural elements to the top of it, and just that little hint of stand in the bottom left-hand side. There's no football pitch in this image. There's no action in this image, but it gives us an establishing shot of where the World Cup is being held, the natural environment in which these matches are being played, and the shape of the architecture. Almost more of an architectural and a natural world image, but really, really well observed here from Luke. It really makes you want to go there. It really makes you want to experience it. I just love this shot. So that's my favourite images of the World Cup so far. We might do a catch-up in a couple of weeks' time when we start looking at the knockout phases and as more of these images land on the editor's desk. If you'd like, you can get a portfolio review from me. You can visit my website, nofussmust.com. You can book in for one of our one-to-one sessions, either in person or remotely. Have a look at some of the other videos on this channel where we upload a new lighting tutorial or new video like this celebrating photography every week. Tell your friends about it, say nice things, and as ever, all the very best.